Welcome to the Outlier Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Conlin, and today we're going to dive into a seriously bizarre but also incredibly tragic case that has rocked Fairfax County, Virginia. And this is a story that involves alleged love, betrayal, murder, and an au pair who apparently now sits at the center of it all. So, what happens when the American dream becomes a nightmare? And what secrets lie beneath the surface of a seemingly all American family? Well, get ready because this case is going to leave you scratching your head as I am scratching mine. So, let's set the scene here. It all began in the quiet suburb of Herndon, Virginia, which is part of the DC area. The population is about 24,000 people. It's a nice place or community to live. And this is where Christine and Brendan Banfield, a young couple, called home. They were married, according to Facebook, in 2010. And I found this very sweet post from Christine that she wrote in 2016 that I'll read to you right now. Quote, "Going to weddings always makes me look back and remember all the happiness and love I've been privileged to have over the past 6 years. I love you, Brendan Banfield." End quote. Christine was a beloved ICU nurse and a mother, and she lived with her husband, Brendan, who was a special agent with the IRS, and their then 4-year-old daughter, who you can tell from photos and posts that she just adored her, and vice versa. And look, you guys, I am no dummy. I know that Facebook, social media can be all smoke and mirrors, but I'm also familiar with body language and statements, and all of Christine's look genuine and from the heart. So, not to be cliche, but from the outside, the Banfields seem like the perfect family. Neighbors described them as very friendly, and Christine would often organize bike rides for the local kids, and Brendan was known for his love of the Dallas Cowboys. But sadly, we will soon learn that the Banfields' picture-perfect life was filled with lies, deceit, and, unfortunately, murder. Now, enter the 21-year-old au pair, Juliana Perez Magalis. She, again, was 21 years old, and she was from Brazil. She arrived in the United States in 2021, hoping for a better life, like so many people do. And Juliana was part of this au pair cultural exchange program, and she was working with the Banfield family, caring for their young daughter. And I have a lot of girlfriends that have au pairs, and they tell me that some of them are great and some of them are not so great. But one thing that everybody said about their au pair is that they eat them out of house and home, which I thought was really funny. But Juliana had a really good setup. Christine Banfield was super sweet, super easygoing, great to work for, and the Banfields lived in a nearly $1 million home. So everything started out perfectly. But then, by early 2022, things took a dark turn. Juliana and Brendan had started a romantic relationship. I mean, can anyone say cliche? That literally makes me sick to my stomach. Dude, you're so unoriginal. You're sleeping with the au pair. But Christine, she had no idea what was happening under her own roof. And this is not a dig at Christine at all. She worked all the time. She loved her job, and she loved her daughter, and she loved her husband. Now, also, Juliana's mother back in Brazil, she certainly had no idea what was going on because she later told the Washington Post, quote, "I pray for the prosecutors and the judge to understand who is guilty in this case because it is not Juliana." End quote. Well, little did anyone know that this stupid affair would soon set off a series of events that would lead to 2 tragic deaths in the Banfield home on February 24th, 2023. And it makes me so angry. I mean, men, if you want to feel good about yourself, why is it that you have to go and have affairs with the babysitters, the young babysitters? It literally is so old. It's so cliche. Just go to therapy instead. I know I'm being silly right now, but I just have to say it. So, okay, back to the story. Let's talk about what happened on the day of these murders. At around 7:47 a.m., the first of several 911 calls was made from the Banfield residence. And these 911 calls are not available. This is an ongoing investigation right now. Oh my goodness, do I wish I had them though. So, the call was a gut-wrenching moan and then silence. And it was followed by a series of frantic calls from both Juliana and Brendan. But it wasn't until about 8:02 a.m. that they finally connected with emergency services. So when police arrived around 8 a.m., they found a very bloody scene. And I'm going to explain all this after, but they found 39-year-old Joseph Ryan, a man who lived somewhat nearby, dead from gunshot wounds, and Christine Banfield, barely clinging to life after being stabbed in the neck. Both would unfortunately die that morning. Now, there are a lot of questions I am sure you have, because I have questions, but don't worry, I'm going to go ahead and break some of this down because it gets kind of complicated. So, who is Joseph Ryan, and why was he in the Banfield home? Why did this deadly encounter take place? Well, according to Juliana, he had showed up to meet with Christine. What? Yeah, so things get a little more complicated from here. As the investigation unfolded, police uncovered something really, really troubling. Joseph Ryan had been communicating with someone using the alias Anastasia9 on a fetish website known as FetLife. The account had been active for months, and investigators discovered that it was created on Christine's computer, but there was literally zero evidence to suggest that Christine herself was behind any of these messages. And then it started to become increasingly clear that Juliana and Brendan Banfield were deeply involved in this very dangerous game. Court documents revealed that the FetLife account had been set up using a photo of Christine in a one-piece bathing suit. And here's the kicker. That photo, Juliana emailed it to herself. So, Juliana and Brendan allegedly lured Joseph Ryan to the Banfield home to basically have this rendezvous with a fake Christine decoy, this online fantasy, and it ended in a brutal and bloody double homicide. So this is what Juliana told police. She initially told them that she had left the house to take the Banfield's daughter to the zoo, but returned after forgetting their lunch. Now, apparently, Brendan and Juliana and Banfield's daughter all come back to the house together. And when they do, they claim that they found Joseph Ryan attacking Christine with a knife. Now, Brendan allegedly shot Joseph Ryan once and then instructed Juliana to go and retrieve a second gun from a safe in the master bedroom. So Juliana says, "Oh, I feared for my life." So she did it, and she shot Joseph Ryan again, this time in the chest, claiming self-defense. So here is where things get murky. In October of 2023, Juliana was arrested for the murder of Joseph Ryan. She was the only one charged with his murder. How and why did Brendan Banfield avoid these charges, despite his seemingly clear involvement? Well, the Fairfax County's Commonwealth Attorney, Steve Descano, hinted at the complexity of the case, telling the press, quote, "We wanted to cover all of our bases and make sure the jury has every option when looking at the evidence," end quote. Well, If you read the title of this podcast, you now know that Brendan Banfield has been arrested for the murder of his wife and Joseph Ryan, and we'll get into it. But let's go back to Juliana. So in October of 2023, Juliana Perez Margulis was arrested in Joseph Ryan's death, but not Christine Banfield's. Perez was charged with second-degree murder and use of a firearm in the commission of a felony. And when she was arrested, I just want to note that she had moved into Christine's bedroom at this point. There were photos of her and Brendan now on full display where Christine used to be. And again, the word cliche comes to mind. I mean, this just sounds like a Lifetime movie, but unfortunately, it's Christine Banfield's life, and that's just so tragic. And yeah, it's also creepy, very creepy of Juliana to do what she did. Move into Christine's bedroom and essentially try and replace her. But let's fast forward to some of Juliana's pretrial hearings. So her lawyers argued in court that she acted in self-defense, but nobody was buying it. The Deputy Commonwealth's Attorney, Kelsey Gill, told the court, quote, "This is not what a person in that situation would do unless they were trying to cover something up," end quote. And then there's a timeline problem. Apparently, Juliana and Brendan let more than 10 minutes pass before they called 911. And this is 10 minutes after they walk into the house and they allegedly find Christine being stabbed by Joseph Ryan, which didn't actually happen. So for a very, very long time, months and months and months, Brendan Banfield remained free, continuing to work for the IRS and even driving for Uber. But this past Monday, September 17th, a grand jury indicted Brendan on 4 counts of aggravated murder. And we'll get into why it's 4 counts. I know only 2 people have died, but Fairfax County Police Chief Kevin Davis summed up the public's reaction saying, "Now, 570 days later, we know the deaths of Joseph Ryan and Christine Banfield are both, in fact, murders." So, as I said, Brendan Banfield is facing 4 counts of aggravated murder and 1 count of using a firearm during a commission of a felony. And yes, only 2 people were killed that day. Now, this is what the DA had to say about that. Quote, "The reason we did that is, it's very lawyerly and technically, but essentially it boils down to in the aggravated murder statute, there are a number of different options to prove that. When we took a look at what we intend to present at trial, we believe our presentation of evidence can possibly hit both of those different subsection elements." And this is Fairfax Commonwealth's Attorney Steve Descano. So he basically said he wanted to give the jury every option available, which is kind of what I had said before. He said, quote, "We want to cover all of our bases and make sure the jury has every option they could want when looking at the evidence." And I'm going to read part of the indictment in just a bit so you can actually see what those charges actually are. And I want to be clear, I'm looking at this case from a very high level. There are lots of really tiny details that I really didn't get into for this episode, just for the purpose of just painting a picture of the overall case and what's about to happen, because Juliana is actually set to go to trial in November of 2024. And oh boy, I am going to follow that. But let's just sum this up before I read the indictment. What happened was, and this is just putting everything together, Juliana and Brendan thought they were so smart they would set up an account for Christine to make her look like she was having some kind of weird fetish affair type of thing with Joseph Ryan, and she obviously had no idea. And they lured Joseph Ryan to the Banfield house under the pretenses that it was Christine, and they were most likely going to do something. And then they staged the scene where it looked like Joseph Ryan attacked Christine with a knife, and then they walked in and they were the heroes. I mean, people are so batshit crazy. Excuse my language. How on earth did you ever think this was going to work, Brendan and Juliana? I mean, these are truly sick individuals if all of this is allegedly true. And I have a feeling a lot more is going to come out at trial. I'm dying to hear the 911 calls. I mean, I want to put in a FOIA request for any jailhouse phone calls. I feel like there's a lot to work with here, but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. But let me pull up Brendan Banfield's recent indictment and read part of that to you. The Commonwealth of Virginia versus Brendan Robert Banfield. Charges: aggravated murder and using a firearm in the commission of a felony. Count 1. The grand jurors of the Commonwealth of Virginia in and for the body of the county of Fairfax and now attending the said court at its September term 2024 charges that on or about the day of the 24th of February 2023 in the county of Fairfax, Brendan Robert Banfield willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation did kill and murder Christine Banfield as part of the same act or transaction during which he also did kill and murder Joseph Ryan. Count 2. The grand jurors of the Commonwealth of Virginia in and for the body of the county of Fairfax and now attending the said court at its September term 2024 charges that on or about the 24th day of February 2023 in the county of Fairfax, Brendan Robert Banfield willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation did kill and murder Joseph Ryan as part of the same act or transaction during which he also did kill and murder Christine Banfield. Count 3. The grand jurors of the Commonwealth of Virginia in and for the body of the county of Fairfax and now attending the said court at its September term 2024 charges that on or about the 24th day of February 2023 in the county of Fairfax, Brendan Robert Banfield willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation did kill and murder Christine Banfield within the same 3-year period during which he did also kill and murder Joseph Ryan. Count 4, and I'm going to skip the parts that you are very familiar with at the beginning and go straight to the actual charges. Brendan Robert Banfield willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation did kill and murder Joseph Ryan with the same 3-year period during which he also did kill and murder Christine Banfield. Count 5. The grand jurors of the Commonwealth of Virginia in and for the body of the county of Fairfax and now attending the said court in its September term 2024 on or about the 24th day of February 2024 in the county of Fairfax, Brendan Robert Banfield did unlawfully and feloniously use a firearm while committing the murder of Joseph Ryan. And then it is signed, witness subpoenas sworn and available to testify before the grand jury. The DA was really making sure here that Brendan Banfield hopefully does not get away with anything. And now, what happens next here is that Juliana's trial is set to proceed as planned in November of 2024, and officials have made it clear that the charges against Brendan Banfield do not alter her case. She remains charged with second-degree murder for Joseph Ryan's death, and her trial, again, is expected to begin in just a few months. So this is going to be really crazy. I really and truly think that it's going to be a wild trial. So I also wanted to take the time to play part of the press conference for you guys because, like I had mentioned, Brendan Banfield was just arrested on September 17th, 2024. This is all very new and everything is unfolding, everything is developing, but I think it's important to play Chief Kevin Davis and everything that he had to say at this press conference.
2023, I stood in the middle of a cul-de-sac street in Fairfax County and described the deaths of 2 persons inside of a residential home. Now, 570 days later, we know the deaths of Joseph Ryan and Christine Banfield are both, in fact, murders. As you are aware, we charged Juliana Margalis with the murder of Joseph Ryan on October 13th, 2023. She remains in custody and awaits an upcoming trial. As described by Mr. Descano, we are today announcing aggravated murder charges against Brendan Banfield for the murder of his wife, Christine Banfield, and Joseph Ryan. To be clear, Brendan Banfield, then 38, and Christine Banfield, then 37, were married and living in a single-family home with their then 4-year-old daughter. Also living in the house was the family au pair, Juliana Margalis, then 22 years old. Joseph Ryan, then 39 years old, lived in Springfield, Virginia at the time of his murder inside the Banfield home. Fairfax County police officers responded to a 911 call from within the home on February 24, 2023. In an upstairs bedroom, we found Joseph Ryan deceased as a result of gunshot wounds and found Christine Banfield suffering from stab wounds. Christine was transported to a local hospital and pronounced dead. We recovered 2 firearms and a knife. We know Brendan Banfield and Juliana Margalis, the family au pair, were involved in a romantic relationship at the time of the murders. I will not describe our victim Joseph Ryan's relationship with anyone involved in the case at the moment because this investigation continues. And, like any criminal investigation, our probing of the facts does not end when an arrest is made. This much is clear. We have evidence to now allege that Christine Banfield's life was unlawfully taken and Joseph Ryan's life was unlawfully taken. We are very limited, as Mr. Descano stated, in providing additional details to your many inevitable questions this evening. We will not try this case in a news conference, nor will we compromise the integrity of our ongoing probe and investigation. The detectives, prosecutors, and victim services specialists who still work tirelessly on this case know who they are. To the Benson and Ryan families, a special thank you for your patience and trust. And now we will do our best to take some of your questions.
And that was Chief Kevin Davis of the Fairfax County Police. And the questions were basically inaudible, so I didn't play them. But you can really tell how this just seemed to shake the entire community up. I mean, it's so tragic. It's so sad. Christine Banfield and Joseph Ryan should still be here. Christine Banfield's daughter should still have her mother. It is such a tragedy, and I continue to be just perplexed and heartbroken as these cases just don't ever end. And some literal breaking news as I was recording this episode, the local Virginia ABC 7 news station has announced that a trial date is now set for Brendan Banfield. His trial is set to begin February 3rd, and it's expected to last 4 weeks. So this is all from ABC 7, which is also linked out in the episode notes, and that's WJLA. Quote, "There was some back and forth in court Thursday with the defense and the prosecution over scheduling. The prosecution requested Banfield waive his right to a speedy trial, but his attorney said he'd have to discuss that with his client first, who wasn't present. The defense stated Banfield's legal team has 8 terabytes of discovery from the Commonwealth to go through." Last year, 7 News learned officers found Banfield's wife, Christine, stabbed and a man named Joseph Ryan shot. Authorities later charged the family's au pair, Juliana Perez Margalis, with second-degree murder for the man's death, and she's being held at an adult detention center on no bond while she also waits for trial. Almost a year after that arrest, in October of 2023, authorities arrested Banfield during a traffic stop and charged him 570 days exactly after the double murder. And as for what led to Banfield's arrest all this time later, officials said the police investigation led to new information that was, quote, instrumental in securing the indictment, and they have not elaborated on what that information is, end quote. In the coming months, as both trials progress, I believe we will continue to learn more about what really happened inside that home, how far people will go to cover up their secrets, their disgusting secrets, and ultimately, who had to pay the price for these awful crimes? Christine, Joseph Ryan, their families, their children. It's just awful. So, again, thank you for listening. I will be following this case. You can also follow me on my other show on Wednesday nights. That's Primetime Crime Show. And you better believe I will be discussing this case with my co host, Jarrett Ferrantino. There is still going to be a lot to unpack with motions coming in the Brendan Banfield trial. And then, of course, when Juliana's trial starts. All right, guys, I'm Lauren Conlin. Thanks for listening.